Hey guys, welcome back to another Q&A. It is September 1st, 2020. So this week's Q&A actually was a really good questions, very specific questions. I like these like very specific questions about all kinds of random topics. I think it's cool, and I think it adds, talks about some of the nuances and things that we might run into. So pretty cool. All right, so first one, do you worry about purity of your olive oil given it is so often faked? Short answer is yes, but few things. You can really easily jump on Google, and there's a lot of culinary sites and stuff that review different olive oils, even like some of the bigger brands that you would see, you know, in stores nationwide. So I would suggest doing that first, and then you can find a brand that's going to work pretty well. Typically when you do that, they have the right type of bottling, they have the right type of sourcing, then you actually know it's olive oil, right? It's not always the cheapest, but there are some pretty affordable brands, and generally with olive oil, I mean, you're not like blowing through tons and tons of it. Most people aren't, so it's not too terrible. You know, it's not like a bad trade-off. Yeah, you know, it is often faked, and it can be faked with low grade like vegetable oils, or cut with vegetable oils and other things. These things that oxidize easily, don't have any of the benefits, don't have the same fatty acid profile, essentially like the exact opposite of what you want. So kind of ironic that that happens, but yeah, I would definitely just do a quick like source check online, see what's available in your store, and go from there. How much fat, wait, got cut off. How much fat needs to stay in a female's contest prep for optimal hormone function? Oh, well, we know that fat and cholesterol both are essential for hormone production, hormone maintenance, you know, hormone metabolism, all these things. That goes for males and females, though females being a little less resilient, I'm gonna be a little more cautious bringing them down to like a trace fat type diet. And if I do it, it's not gonna be very long term, and it might not even be every day. It might just be like certain days, like protein veggie days, if we absolutely needed to do it. It's going to vary so much person to person. You know, everyone's obviously like what everyone's caloric needs are and what they can get away with in a prep and how low they need to go, and like all those things vary so much. And then to that point, same with females, hormone profiles. Some get hit a lot harder than others. Some don't get hit that hard at all. So it's hard to say, but you know, I would generally try to keep 25, if you can, 20 to 30 grams of fat in there. That's still, you know, 20, 30 grams of fat's getting on the lower end, but if you could keep that in there, that would be great. Of course, from higher quality sources, less inflammatory sources, just generally the stuff that you're gonna eat anyhow. Make sure you get your omega-3 fatty acids, right? So, yeah, that's like a roundabout ballpark answer. If you absolutely had to go low fat, like a low carb, low fat, trace fat type of diet for a short term, you probably get away with it. Again, like everything has a cost. The poison is in the dose, right? At some point it's going to downregulate hormones even more than you already would be by getting lean. But this is like a general recommendation. Using a higher fat diet, another fat question. Higher fat diet, high protein, low carb, mod fat. Okay, in the off season, pros and cons. Love your work. Thank you. Okay. And they ask in relation to an enhanced male. It doesn't matter a ton. First and foremost is just digestibility. You know, I would look at digestibility. Typically, the macros that you digest and assimilate well are often the macros that you're going to feel the best and perform the best on. that's what we're looking at first and foremost, right? Doesn't matter what, you know, energy substrates you're using in which situations and that, like that stuff, yes, scientifically that does matter, but it's not going to be the same for everyone in terms of how they feel and digest certain foods, and more specifically like certain macronutrients themselves. So, you know, I'm going to look at that first. That could be a con, could be a pro. Again, just depends on how you digest it. Another one could be the whole insulin sensitivity equation. Some people indirectly will become more insulin resistant from a higher fat diet. And, you know, a lot of the research on insulin resistance will show high fat, you know, like high free or high lipid levels in the blood. Is that true for everyone? Nope, because there's plenty of people that they go pull the carbs down and increase the fats, and they actually have better insulin sensitivity. So again, it just depends. And, you know, the source is going to make the difference there too. Are you eating highly inflammatory fats that disrupt that process, or are you eating monounsaturated fats? Are you eating specific saturated fats? Are you eating maybe grass-fed meats? Are you eating, like, I have a whole video on my YouTube about fat selection, so you might want to check that out. But probably the easiest way that you can tell would be, 1, see how you digest it. 2, check your blood sugar. See which days look better. Do you look better after, do your blood sugars look better after carb? You can take the same calories, right? Rotate the macros around. How's it look after more carbohydrate heavy day versus a fat heavier day? How do they look? How does your body look after the 2 different days? How do you perform in both situations? Take those parameters. That's going to answer your question. And it's not a hard thing to figure out. I mean, you could do it. You could literally do it like each one a couple times in the same caloric range and just see how it goes, right? So that would be my suggestion. Favorite pieces of gym equipment you own, and what do you regret buying? I don't know if I have a favorite. I use everything quite a bit, or at least in different rotations. You know, I get a lot of use out of the belt squat. Someone was asking me about the belt squat the other day. I do rows on it. I can do like different width stance, like different squats on it. I can do those somersault squats I posted on it. You can even rig up a handle for floor chest presses on it. You can do RDLs on it. I mean, there's so much you can do on that thing. So that's a good, like, if you want bang for your buck and like versatility, that's a good one. I don't know that that's necessarily my favorite. I mean, probably just like dumbbells are my favorite, I guess. I get so much use out of those. You know, I can train without machines. I'm not that worried about it. Let's see. One that I regret. I don't know that I regret buying anything in particular, but there are like little things that I don't use that much. Like I have like a landmine that I don't use that often. What else? I was gonna say my dip station, but I've used my dip station a ton in different phases too. So I wouldn't even say that. I don't use my hack squat much. So I do have a leg press hack squat combination machine. I do not use the hack squat portion, and it's just from mechanical standpoint, I just don't fit in it. Like I don't feel good in it, the way that it works. I use the leg press portion a bunch. I've gotten tons of use out of it, and I train calves on it, so because the plate moves. But I don't use the hack squat part. So I don't know if that's really something I would change necessarily. Maybe I would have just gotten a leg press. I don't know. But there are other people that have used the hack squat, so yeah, there you go. I hope that's maybe somewhat helpful. But I try to buy everything with intent, you know what I mean? Like I try to make sure that I'm definitely going to use it, right? So would you add any extra meal late night to cover Lantus active life during a mass gaining phase? They said 125 IUs. It's a good amount. Well, the thing is, you should really be tailoring the actual insulin protocol to the food mainly. Yes, food timing, you can move things around. If you were worried about a big gap between your last meal and bedtime and then that fast all night long while that insulin was active, if you're worried about that, sure, you could move some of your food up to before bed to spread it out more. That'd be fine. But I mean, if you're trying to cover more insulin by eating more food, then you're probably just taking too much. You just don't need that much. So you really only need to take as much as you have glucose to dispose of or transport, right? Or time it different, split it up morning, AM and PM. Sorry, my cat is running around. Split it up AM and PM, lower the dose, and then also use a fast-acting analog with meals. There's a lot of options there, but I wouldn't necessarily be like trying to manipulate my diet a ton to accommodate for more, is what I'm saying, right? So, but yeah, you could spread the food out a little bit more if that was an issue. So, hope that answers it. Let's see here. I think I have a couple more. Advice for coaching your significant other, such as incorporating date night once a week. Can be a tough one. I would think right off the bat, the date night, like if you're using like a macro plan or tracking their calories or doing something like that, think about how that plays into the total calorie balance, right? So account for it. If you need to take a little bit out during the week so you can have that meal, that might be worth doing if it's good for the relationship portion, right? So I'm gonna consider that right off the bat. That'd probably be the main consideration, to be completely honest, is just like how it fits in calorically to the equation. So if they're in a calorie deficit or calorie surplus, like how that affects their total overall calorie balance. And then I can see like how I need to manipulate the diet around that meal. Now, obviously, like that's okay to an extent, as long as it doesn't become like I have to be so crazy restrictive during the week just to allow for this binge on the weekend. You don't want to do that. It's a bad cycle, but to some extent you can do that, right? And if you're coaching the person, try to let them know that good form that good relationship with food. Learn about portions, learn about hunger signals, learn about, triggers, things like that. So that would be the main thing, is just like, how does it fit into that total calorie balance? How do we make that work? If you can do that, you shouldn't have a problem. You shouldn't have a problem with that situation. Now, like, there's a lot of other little things in there about coaching them that could potentially be problematic, but if that is your concern, that's the easy part to fix. All right, last one. Aldosterone function, mainly how can it affect prep peak week? So main thing there is aldosterone is, consider it like an adrenal hormone, more or less. It is there to help with sodium and water balance, or electrolyte and water balance mainly. It will affect potassium some, because sodium and potassium will affect each other. But the main thing there is just make sure you drink enough water. If you drink enough water and you consume enough electrolytes, you're not really gonna have a problem with it, especially not during regular prep. Like, during the actual prep itself, water and electrolytes should be pretty static. You shouldn't really be manipulating them much. Now, the one thing you might think about is that with carbohydrate reduction, body fat reduction, things, you might be losing water from certain spaces in the body, right? That can for sure happen, but as long as you stay hydrated, as long as you take in sufficient electrolytes, you might even be cases where I like have someone increase salt in prep, but depends on, like, if they're working with me beforehand, we probably have those things dialed in. But the peak weeks where it really becomes problematic in that, you know, if you cut water too early, then aldosterone will come back to bite you eventually. How long that takes kind of depends on how much body water does the person have, like how big are they. A bigger person's probably going to have more fluid, they're probably going to get away with a little bit more water restriction than a smaller person. Other factors like what carbohydrates they're taking in, or like how much food in general, are they taking in diuretics, what are their electrolytes, right? So just in like a real, like looking at it in a real simple, a really simple way would be, if you hydrated, this is why like people would hydrate, or what they call maybe like water load throughout the week. And then once this aldosterone levels are very, very low, that way if they pull their water Friday night before a Saturday morning show, they don't really have to worry about it coming back to bite them. Now it could, depending on how long you leave that water out and if you're taking diuretics, but generally if you drank a bunch of water during the week and you pulled it, like you stopped drinking at bedtime on Friday night, you could pretty much wake up Saturday morning, have just a little bit of water to wash down food and supplements or whatever, maybe have a little bit of coffee or something, you're pretty much good. You won't have to chug a bunch of water. Now I don't want anyone to go out and do that and mess up your peak week, but I'm just giving you a general idea of how aldosterone will work there. The longer you go, the more chance you have of aldosterone coming up, and that's going to retain water and sodium. So that's just kind of like a general how it works. That's why mess with as little as you possibly have to, and you're probably going to be better off. But that's it for this week, guys. Appreciate these questions. They were really, really good, and we'll talk to you guys next time.